Hamjambo wanafunzi wa Kiswahili, karibuni tena kwenye chaneli yangu. Welcome once again to my channel. Today's lesson is a recap of most of the things that we have learned so far. We will start with the verbs, of course. We will learn how to construct a sentence in Swahili in the present tense. We will learn how to negate that. We will learn about pronouns and the subject prefixes. We will do the verb to be and how to negate that, the verb to have and how to negate that, as well as the locational verb to be. Let's dive right in. If you've been watching my lessons from the beginning, you have a good understanding of the Swahili basics. We learned that we have 3 types of Swahili verbs. We learned that we have verbs that have a Bantu origin, and these verbs are the ones that mostly end with a syllable a. Verbs of a Bantu origin end with syllable a. For instance, kukimbia is a verb that means to run. Ku is the prefix that starts with every verb, and then kimbia is the verb root. Kimbia or kukimbia is a verb of a Bantu origin. Why? Because it ends with syllable a. We also learned that we have verbs that have non-Bantu origin, or we could say Arabic origin, and they end with suffix e, or u. Examples are kusafiri. Kusafiri is to travel. Or kujibu. Kujibu is to respond. Or another example that ends with e is kusamehe. Kusamehe is to forgive. Those 3 are examples of verbs that have an Arabic origin. Lastly, we learned that there are verbs that are monosyllabic. Monosyllabic verbs are verbs that have only one syllable attached to the prefix ku. We know that every Swahili verb comes with a prefix ku. In this case, a monosyllabic verb has ku plus 1 syllable. A good example is to eat. To eat is kula. Kula. Ku as the prefix and la as the verb root. Another example is kunywa. Ku as the prefix and nywa as the verb root. Another example is kufa, which means to die. Ku as the prefix and fa as the verb root. Or you could say a verb in its imperative form. Another good example for a monosyllabic verb is the verb to be. To be is kuwa. Ku as the prefix and wa as the verb root. We are going to learn the verb to be in this lesson, but we are going to learn that in the present tense, we don't use the verb kuwa. Who remembers what is the verb to be in the present tense? Let me know in the comment section below. We are now going to learn how to construct a Swahili sentence, a simple Swahili sentence in the present tense, using those verbs, those 3 types of verbs that we have learned. The Bantu origin verbs, the Arabic origin verbs, and verbs that are monosyllabic. We learned that if we want to create a Swahili sentence, we only need 3 things. And what are those things? We need the subject, that is the person or the doer of the verb. We need the tense, and we need the verb itself. We've learned that the subject or the doer of the verb is represented by subject prefixes. Subject prefixes represent the pronoun or the subject. If we don't want to mention somebody's name in English, we use pronouns. He, she, they, I, you. But in Swahili, instead of using those pronouns, we use subject prefixes that are representing the pronoun. And sometimes we use pronouns as well as the subject prefixes for emphasis. When you want to introduce yourself, we learned that jina langu ni Lucy. My name is Lucy. But there's also another way you can introduce yourself by saying, I am called Lucy. I am called is already a simple sentence in Swahili. I for ni, because the subject prefix for I is ni, na, the present tense, nina, and then itwa as the verb to be called or called. Nina itwa Lucy is I am called Lucy. Ni, the subject prefix, na, the present tense, and itwa, the verb. You can see here that the verb is itwa and not kuitwa. Kuitwa is the verb in its infinitive form. We drop the prefix ku and we just use the verb in its imperative form, itwa. Ninaitwa Lucy. I am called Lucy. Let's use the example of the verb that I had given earlier, kukimbia. Kukimbia is to run. If I wanted to say you are running, remember the subject prefix for you is u. U plus na, which is the present tense, and running, which is kimbia. We drop the prefix ku and we use the verb in its imperative form. Una kimbia. You are running. Here are more examples. I will not read them out, but I'm just going to create a list on the wall that you can practice on your own. Here are subject prefixes for the subject, plus the tense, plus the verbs. I'm going to use different kinds of verbs so that you can see how we have used all the types of verbs in making Swahili sentences. Let's move on into how to negate Swahili sentences that are in the present tense. If we can continue using the same examples of verbs that we have used, ninaitwa becomes siitwi. How did we do that? Kuitwa is a verb of Bantu origin. How do we know this? It's because it has a at the end. It ends with syllable a. Kuitwa. So when I say ninaitwa, when negating verbs that are of Bantu origin, we change the subject prefixes into their negative form. So ni, which is the subject prefix for I, becomes si. And then we drop the tense. And then the last syllable turns from a to e. Ninaitwa si itwi. We change the subject prefix into its negative form. So ni turns to si, we remove the tense, and then the last a turns to e. Ninaitwa si itwi. The other example was kukimbia. Unakimbia, hukimbii. U turns into its negative form of u, which is hu. We remove the tense and then we change the last syllable from a to e. Unakimbia, hukimbii. Again, here is a list of subject prefixes in their negative form. If you want to negate subject prefixes, this is how they look like. Ni turns to si, u turns to hu, a turns to ha, and so on and so forth. Let's try negating sentences that have Swahili verbs but of Arabic origin. A good example of a verb that has an Arabic origin we said was kusafiri, which is to travel. If I wanted to say she is traveling, the right translation for that is anasafiri. A for he or she, na for the present tense, and safiri for the verb. Again, we dropped the prefix ku and we are using the verb safiri. She is traveling, anasafiri. How do we negate that? To negate verbs that are of Arabic origin, they do not change. The verbs in the Bantu origin changed from a to e. The last syllable turned from A to E. Verbs that are of Arabic origin do not change. They stay the same. Anasafiri becomes hasafiri. We change the subject prefix a to ha, just like we would do in verbs that are of Bantu origin. We remove the tense the same way, but the verb itself does not change. Anasafiri, hasafiri. Another example is respond, to respond, which is kujibu. Kujibu ends with syllable u. So that tells us it is a verb of an Arabic origin. And to negate this, we want to see if the verb itself changes. We've said that verbs that are of Arabic origin do not change when negating them. Only verbs that are of Bantu origin, and we know this because they end with syllable a. And when negating that, they turn from a to e. But when using verbs of Arabic origin, we keep the verb as is. Wanajibu is they are responding. Wanajibu is they are responding. Wa is the subject prefix for they. How do we negate that subject prefix? Wa becomes hawa. Wa becomes hawa. You can see that on the list of subject prefixes in their negative form. So how do we say they are not responding? Hawajibu. We use the subject prefix in the negative form, we drop the tense, and the verb remains the same. Wanajibu, hawajibu. So we've learned that when negating in the present tense, we are using the subject prefix, the present tense, and the verb itself. When negating in the present tense, we use the subject prefix in its negative form. We drop the tense, that is the na, and if it's a verb of Bantu origin, a turns to e. And if it's a verb of Arabic origin, we keep the verb as is. What about when negating verbs that are monosyllabic? Mnakunywa maji. Mnakunywa maji. That is, you are drinking water. Is the subject prefix for you in plural. Mnakunywa maji, you are drinking water. How do we negate that? Kunywa, remember, is a monosyllabic verb. It has the prefix ku and the verb itself in the imperative form nywa. Kunywa. Mnakunywa maji becomes hamkunywi maji. Mnakunywa maji, hamkunywi maji. What has happened to this sentence? We have used the subject prefix of you in plural in its negative form, ham. We have dropped this tense, the present tense na, and then the verb kunywa has become kunywi, the same way we did in the verbs of Bantu origin. Mnakunywa maji, hamkunywi maji. You might also notice here that I did not drop the prefix ku. I kept the prefix ku when using the verb kunywa, to drink. Mnakunywa maji, hamkunywi maji. Let's use another monosyllabic verb, to eat. We are eating chapatis. We are eating chapatis is tunakula chapati. Tu is the subject prefix for we. Na is the present tense, and kula chapati is to eat chapatis. I hope you know chapatis. To negate that, tunakula chapati becomes hatukuli chapati. The subject prefix for we in the negative form is hatu. And then the verb is kuli. What has happened to this? I have kept the prefix ku and I have changed the last a to e. Tunakula chapati, hatukuli chapati. What are we learning here? We are learning that verbs that are monosyllabic are treated the same way we treat verbs that are of Bantu origin. Except monosyllabic verbs most of the time go hand in hand with their prefix ku. I know that there are people who make sentences using monosyllabic verbs where they drop the prefix ku. So if they wanted to say ninakula, instead of saying ninakula, they would say ninala. Ni as the subject prefix for I, na as the present tense, and then just the la, ninala, instead of ninakula. Tell me, maybe you're a Swahili expert. Which one is correct? Ninakula or ninala? Do we drop the prefix ku when we are using monosyllabic verbs or do we keep them? I personally would say ninakula or ninakunywa. Somebody will say ninala or ninanywa. You take your pick and tell me what is correct. Let's learn about the verb to be. The verb to be, we've learned it's a monosyllabic verb which is kuwa. Ku as the prefix and the verb root wa, kuwa. But in the present tense, when we are using the verb to be, we just use it as ni, ni, ni. This is different from the subject prefix I, because we know the subject prefix for I is ni, but this is different. If we want to introduce ourselves, or we want to talk about our careers, or we want to talk about what country of origin we come from, we always use the verb to be. For instance, mimi ni Lucy. Mimi is the pronoun for I. Mimi ni Lucy. Ni is the verb to be. Mimi ni Lucy. Mimi ni Mkenya. I am Kenyan. Mimi ni mwalimu. I am a teacher. So when you're introducing yourself, you're going to use the verb to be in the present tense. Mimi ni Lucy. Mimi ni Mkenya. Mimi ni mwalimu. And the same verb to be ni is used with all the other pronouns. If I am mimi ni, you will be wewe ni, he or she will be yeye ni, we will be sisi ni, you in plural will be nyinyi or ninyi ni, they will be wao ni. Let me see it in the comment section below how you would introduce yourself using the verb to be ni. Mimi ni Mkenya, mimi ni mwalimu, mimi ni Lucy. Here is a list of professions and countries in Swahili that you could use when introducing yourself. If you wanted to negate the verb to be in the present tense, ni turns to si. If I wanted to say I am not Lucy, I will say mimi si Lucy. And the same goes to all the other pronouns. Mimi si Lucy. Mimi si mwalimu. Mimi si Mkenya. Wewe si daktari. Na kadhalika. Na kadhalika is etc. etc. You can now use the examples I've given to negate the verb to be. Wewe si daktari, wewe ni mwandishi wa vitabu. So far, we have learned what verbs in Swahili are. We've learned the 3 types of verbs. We've learned how to construct a simple Swahili sentence in the present tense using the subject prefix, the tense, and the verb. We've learned how to negate the 3 kinds of verbs. We've learned about the verb to be ni in the present tense and the negative of it, which is si. Here is something else. There is something that is called the locational verb to be. The locational verb to be is different from the usual verb to be. We saw that when using the verb to be in the present tense, we use the syllable ni. Mimi ni. Wewe ni. Yeye ni. And when negating, mimi si, wewe si, Yeye, si. That's how you negate the verb to be. But when using the locational verb to be to show where something is or where you're at, we have three kinds of syllables. We use syllable ko, or sometimes we use po, and sometimes we use mo. The locational verb to be ko is for general places, somewhere in town, somewhere general. The locational verb to be po is for a more particular place. Let's say maybe I'm at this particular supermarket. It's more particular. And the locational verb to be more is for an even more particular place. Let's say under the bed. If you want to be more particular, then you will use the locational verb to be more. If I wanted to say that I am at the market, I will say niko sokoni. I will use the subject prefix for I, which is ni, plus the locational verb to be ko, niko, and then the word soko, which is the market, and I will add syllable ni at the end of the word soko to make it a preposition. At the market. Niko sokoni. So the word for market is soko, and then I use the ni at the end for preposition. So subject prefix, the locational verb to be ko, and the place that I'm at. Niko nyumbani is I am at home. Ni as the subject prefix for I, ko as the locational verb to be, and nyumbani as at home. I could also decide to say nipo nyumbani. You see, to me, nyumbani is a particular place. So instead of saying niko nyumbani, I could also say nipo nyumbani. Ko for a general place, po for a particular place, and mo for an even more particular place. For instance, I could say nimo chumbani. I'm in the room. Nimo chumbani. Another example is meza imo jikoni. Meza imo jikoni. The table is in the kitchen. Jiko is the kitchen, and jikoni with a ni at the end is the preposition to say in the kitchen. Meza imo jikoni. The table is in the kitchen. Again, here is a list of subject prefixes plus the locational verb to be ko. When using the subject prefix a with the locational verb to be, a changes to you. Instead of saying ako sokoni, we say yuko sokoni. So this is the one time where the subject prefix a is irregular. It is only when using the locational verb to be. A changes to you. Ako sokoni is wrong. We say yuko sokoni. How do we negate the locational verb to be? The same way again we negate everything else. The subject prefixes are used in their negative form plus the locational verb to be plus the place that you're at. Niko sokoni, siko sokoni. Uko nyumbani, huko nyumbani. Yuko mjini, hayuko mjini. Na kadhalika. When using the locational verb to be for things that are inanimate, like, things like hoteli, a hotel, or let's say countries, Kenya. You want to say that you are in Kenya. We use the same locational verb to be ko, or po, or mo, but the subject prefix changes. When referring to inanimate things, the subject prefix is i. Hoteli ipo mbali. The hotel is far away. I as the subject prefix for the inanimate thing, po as the locational verb to be, and mbali as far away. Hoteli ipo mbali or hoteli iko mbali. The hotel is far away. I had given a very good example of meza imo jikoni. I bet you wondered why. Meza is an inanimate thing. So instead of using the usual subject prefixes that we use to refer to people, I used e. Meza imo jikoni. This is to show that meza falls in the N class and it does not have a plural. Meza imo jikoni. So what if I wanted to say many tables are in the kitchen? The E turns to Z. The plural for E, that is the subject prefix for inanimate things, E turns to Z. So meza iko jikoni will be meza ziko jikoni. So I will still use the word meza as is because, as I said, it doesn't have a plural, but I will change the subject prefix E to Z. Meza iko jikoni, meza ziko jikoni for plural. If you want to ask where something is, we use the word where, like we use it in English. Where is wapi? Where is the hospital is hospitali iko wapi? Hospitali is an inanimate thing, so I use the subject prefix e and then the locational verb to be ko and wapi. Hospitali iko wapi? Another example is shule iko wapi? Where is the school? Shule iko wapi? The locational verb to be comes in very handy when asking for directions. The left is kushoto, kushoto. The right is kulia, kulia. Straightforward is moja kwa moja. If somebody wants to tell you, go straight forward, you would say, nenda moja kwa moja. Nenda is to go. Nenda moja kwa moja. So, let's say the hospital is on the left. Hospitali iko wapi? Hospitali ipo upande wa kushoto. What if the school is on the right? Shule iko wapi? Shule iko upande wa kulia. Upande means the side of. What about when using the compass when giving directions? The east is mashariki. For instance, Kenya is in East Africa. So we will say that Kenya ipo Afrika Mashariki. Kenya is in East Africa. Kenya ipo Afrika Mashariki. Kenya is the name of the country. E is the subject prefix for Kenya, inanimate thing. And then there's the locational verb to be po. And then Afrika Mashariki, East Africa. And then we have the West. The West is Magharibi. Nigeria is in West Africa. So we will say Nigeria ipo Afrika Magharibi. Nigeria ipo Afrika Magharibi. Then we have the South. The South is Kusini. Zimbabwe is in the southern parts of Africa. So we will say that Zimbabwe ipo upande wa Afrika Kusini. Upande means the side of. So I can say Zimbabwe ipo upande wa Afrika Kusini. The north is Kaskazini. Morocco ipo upande wa Afrika Kaskazini. Morocco is in North Africa. There are so many other words and prepositions that can help you locate where something or someone is. For instance, to say here means hapa. Niko hapa, I am here. You are there means uko pale. Other examples are juu, which is up. Chini, which is down. Under is chini ya. Under the table, chini ya meza. Outside, which is nje. Outside the classroom will be nje ya darasa. Ndani ya is inside of. Ndani ya chumba would be inside the room. Katikati ya is at the center of. For instance, nipo katikati ya mji. I am at the center of the city, or I'm at the city center. Mbali is far away. Karibu is close by. A good example is rafiki yangu anasimama karibu na mimi. Rafiki yangu anasimama karibu na mimi. My friend is standing close to me. So karibu na is close to. Now, let's check the verb to have. The verb to have is the same as to be with. To have in Swahili is the same as to be with. And we say this as kuwa na. Kuwa na, to be with. When we are using the verb to have in the present tense, we don't use it as kuwa na. We just use the na. We drop the kuwa and we just use the na. If I wanted to say that I have something, nina kitu. Kitu is something. We use the subject prefix for I, which is ni. And this is not the verb to be ni, so do not be confused here. The subject prefix which represents the subject or the doer, that is I, ni, plus the na, which is the verb to have, ni na, plus the thing that you have. I have a banana is nina ndizi. Nina is written as one word. Ni plus na and the noun ndizi. Nina ndizi. I have money. Nina pesa. Pesa is money. Nina pesa. Ni as the subject prefix for I, na as the verb to have, and pesa for money. Nina pesa, I have money. I have a question. I have a question is nina swali. Ni as the subject prefix for I, na as the verb to have, and swali as the question. Somebody might ask you, Je, una swali? Je is the syllable that we use when asking a question. We said it starts in every sentence. Je, comma, una, which is u for the subject prefix for you, na as the verb to have, and swali as the question. Je, una swali? Do you have a question? And you would respond, Ndio, yes. Nina swali, yes, I have a question. Je, una chakula? U as the subject prefix for you, na as the verb to have, and chakula for food. Do you have food? Je, una chakula? Ndio, nina chakula. Yes, I have food. Those are two examples of subject prefixes that I have given. You can use all the other subject prefixes when exercising this verb to have. I'm going to list here all the subject prefixes plus the verb to have. This will help you when practicing how to use the verb to have in Swahili. And remember, we are in the present tense. How do we negate the verb to have? The verb to have is negated the same way we negate everything else. Remember, every time we are using the subject prefixes and we want to negate them, we will always use the negative form of those subject prefixes. Here is a list. Ni is si. U is hu. A is ha. Tu is hatu. You in plural, which is is ha and wa is ha wa. These negative forms of the subject prefixes together with the verb to have gives you a sentence with the verb to have in the present tense. I had given an example of nina ndizi. I have a banana. What do we say when I want to negate a sentence? Nina ndizi becomes sina ndizi. The other example I had used was nina pesa. Let's use a different subject prefix. Let's say una pesa. You have money. Una pesa becomes huna pesa. U turns to hu, and then the na, which is the verb to have in the present tense, and then pesa. Una pesa, huna pesa. Je, una pesa? Hapana, sina pesa. Hapana is no, sina is si for I, and na for the verb to have. Hapana, sina pesa. Je, mna mkutano? Do you guys have a meeting? You as you in plural. Je, mna mkutano? Ndiyo, tuna mkutano. As the subject prefix for you in plural, na as the verb to have, and mkutano as a meeting. Je, mna mkutano? Ndiyo, tuna mkutano. How do you negate that? Hapana, hatuna mkutano. When responding to that question, we get to respond it as we. Yes, we have a meeting. So, je, mna mkutano? Do you have a meeting? Ndio, tuna mkutano. We, that is to, the subject prefix, na as the verb to have, and mkutano as the meeting. How do we negate that? Hapana, hatuna mkutano. No, we do not have a meeting. Hatu is the negative form of the subject prefix to. Na is the verb to have, and mkutano. Hatuna mkutano. Je, mna mkutano? Hapana, hatuna mkutano. It is that simple. When negating the verb to have, we only change the subject prefixes into their negative form. Everything else stays the same. That is all we are going to cover on our recap. With this lesson, you get to have a refresher course of everything that we have learned until now. I hope this is helpful for you. Please let me know in the comment section how you find this lesson, how you interact with it. Let me know how slow or how fast I am. Let me know also what else you would like to learn. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification button so that you get to see the next lessons when they drop. Until next time, bye bye.